So we are pretty much at page 285. We pretty much got to the end of this section, right? Am I correct? So we go to the next step in this discussion. The subject that we left off on, and the subject that we're going to continue with now, is about the name Rechovot that Isaac gave to the well that he dug after he finally found dug and a well and found water without being harassed and without being attacked by the surrounding Philistine neighbors. So when he finds this well, he calls it Rechovot, right? Expanses, going wider and wider. So we've had some discussions about what this might mean, and we got to the top of 285. Yeah? Okay? Good. No objections. So we'll start with Rabbi Shimon. Somebody please want to... Beryl, there you go. How did you know what I was going to ask? How did you know what the finishing of the question was going to be? Unbelievable. Good.
Surprise.
Right. So good. So 285, the new section, Rabbi Shimon opened.
Rabbi Shimon opened. Hokmot, wisdom, cries aloud outside. Barech, vote in the broad places. She raises her voice. This verse is a supernal mystery. What is Hokmot? Wisdoms. Supernal wisdom and lesser wisdom, comprised in the supernal abiding within.
Okay. So the verse in Proverbs is part of the wisdom literature that Proverbs is, that celebrates wisdom all over the place. And the verse says that wisdom is out there. Wisdom is also often, well, the word chokhmah is feminine in Hebrew. And wisdom goes out into the street and calls out for people to come and seek wisdom. Come and seek wisdom. So this is this chokhmot bachutz tarona arachovot titen kola. So that's the verse. If we see that the end of the verse is she raises her voice. So that's barachovot in Rechovot, and that's of course the term that we're going to look at soon. She will raise her voice. But the first part of the verse, and this is what the Zohar implicitly brings up, is referring to wisdom in the plural. It doesn't say chokhmah bachutz taron, that wisdom shall call out outside. It says chokhmot. It says wisdoms, plural. And then it turns into singular. So what is this about? So the Zohar says, this is a clue for us to begin pondering this high mystery. So what does it mean, chokhmot, wisdoms, more than one wisdom? The answer is there's an upper wisdom and a lower wisdom. Right? There's a higher chokhmah, and then there's a lower chokhmah. And the two of them make it, a plural, and they are joined in this process of raising their voice, crying out loud. So the upper wisdom is chokhmah itself. If you look at the diagram that we have, all the way at the very top diagram of the manifestations of God. So first you have Keter, right, the crown, the beginning of this whole unfolding process. And the very next step is Chokhmah. So that's wisdom, right? So that's the higher wisdom. Then the lower wisdom is all the way down at the end, where all of the forces that have been engendered by God's unfolding pour themselves forth into the container that we talked about last time, and that's Shekhinah. So Shekhinah takes within her the energies that originally came out of Chokhmah. So she is the lower, the lesser Chokhmah. Okay. They're all, both of them are in the higher realms of the divine. Okay. So what does it mean that Chokhmah starts calling out, right? What does it mean that it starts calling out and raising its voice? What does that have to? What does that tell us? And eventually, we'll have to understand how it takes place, barachovot, in the broad places. So cries aloud outside. The next paragraph.
Cries aloud outside. Come and see. Supernal wisdom is concealed of all concealed, unknown, unrevealed, as is said. No human knows its worth. Expanding to radiate, it gleams in the mystery of the world that is coming, a world created from it, as we have learned. The world that is coming was created with Yod. This wisdom...
Yud. Call it Yud. Then everybody knows what we're talking about. We're talking about the letter Yud.
Okay. Why did they put an O in it?
Because they're pronouncing it Yod.
Oh, okay. The world that is coming was created with Yud. This wisdom is concealed there, and they are one. When all is prepared in the mystery of the world that is coming, as we have said, joy radiates, all in silence, never heard outside.
Okay. So the supernal wisdom, Chokhmah herself, or itself, or even himself, is concealed of the concealed, right? The most mysterious aspect that is impossible to talk about. Even though we're talking about it, what we're talking about it is by saying that it's impossible to talk about. When we look at the spherotic diagrams, we have 10 sphirot. Keter is the first, Chokhmah is the second, Binah is the third, and then we have 7 more sphirot. So this is, we've talked about this many times. The 7 sphirot that follow from that top triad are the sphirot that we can talk about all day long. So we talk about Chesed, we talk about Gvura. One is Abraham, one is Isaac. This is the array of divine attributes or manifestations, which we can have some kind of handle on. But what we say, the Gimel Rishonos, the Shalosh Rishonos, the first 3 are concealed in total mystery. And yet we still talk about them, but we have to humbly admit that what we're saying is simply the acknowledgement of how unknown that realm of the divine is. It's practically unreachable. So Chokhmah is the wisdom. That's the name. It's the opening thoughts of God as God starts unfolding. Right? That to be a God that is revealed, to be a God that creates a world in which God's presence is felt, that requires a divine unfolding process. And Chokhmah is the first step. It's the beginning thought of turning God inside out, so to speak, and becoming a God of relationships to the outside, beyond God's own self. But that turning point is unfathomable. But that turning point, to be a turning point, has to start a relational process in order for God to become a God of relationships. So Chokhmah creates out of itself a partner. That partner is Binah. That partner is the what can I say? The receptacle for all of Chokhmah's burgeoning ideas about creation. Binah is understanding. Right? Binah takes Chokhmah, takes wisdom, and knows what to do with it. In a lot of places, the parlance is that Chokhmah is Abba Ila'a, the upper father, and Binah is Ima Ila'a, upper mother. So even though it's famous, and we talked about this again many, many times, it's famous that the feminine aspect of God is identified with Shekhinah. There is an upper Shekhinah, there is an upper feminine, there is an upper mother. That mother is the consort, the constant companion, and the vessel by which Chokhmah is able to start engendering. Chokhmah needs the mother to be able to take the seminal impulses that it has and actually start creating a divine world, let alone a regular world. So what we have here is that the unknown quality of Chokhmah is gradually expanding, right? Expanding to radiate. It gleams in the mystery of the world that is coming, a world created from it. So the world that is coming is Alma Da'ati Olam Haba, right? The coming world. So that world, the coming world, is another term for Binah, and Chokhmah radiates into the world that it creates for itself. The image that the Zohar sometimes give is the silkworm weaving its own cocoon to be a house for itself, so that then it can emerge from that house as a as a beautiful creature. So the process here is of this profoundly unknown energy that is the foundation of everything, creating of itself a shell, a house, a vessel, a container that will gestate its own ideas and give them shape and give them futurity, right? Give them a way to keep on coming out, right? The world that is coming, Olam Haba. This is what lets Chokhmah start moving forward. So we say the world that is coming was created with Yud. So this is part of old Midrash before the Zohar, and the Midrash says this world was created and the coming world is created, and we have a name for God, Yah, Yud Hey. Right? Forget about the four-letter name of God. We also have a truncated version of God's name, and we say Ki v'ka Hashem tzur olamim. It's a verse in Yeshaya that God is the creator of worlds by being Yud and Hey. So the Midrash says, what's with the Yud and what's with the Hey? The answer is that we have at the beginning of Genesis Elu toldot shamayim ba'aretz behibaram. This is the story of the unfolding of the coming about of heaven and earth as they were created. And the Midrash says behibaram is the same letters as be'avraham. That Abraham made the creation of the world possible because Abraham took on the burden of living a godly life in this world. Otherwise, the world would not have been able to sustain itself. And Abraham is gifted with the letter Hey to make him Avraham from Avram, right? And they also say Behei Bara'am. Behi Bara'am, the Hebrew word in their being created, can be split and read as they were created, the heavens and the earth, with the letter Hey. So that means that the lower world, the world that we live in, this world, was created with Hey. The world that is coming, the ongoing, arriving world, Olam Haba, was created or is created with Yud. Right? So that's how we now label each one. That's how we differentiate. Now we go back to the 4 letters of God's name. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. So those 4 letters are mapped out by the Kabbalah as also reflecting the 10 aspects of God that we often call Sfirot. So we've got a Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. So the first, the Yud, is the Kotso Shel Yud, the little spitz at the top of the Yud, that's Keter. The Yud itself is Chochmah. The next letter is Hey, is Binah. And then Vav is 6. So we have 6 more Sfirot that come out of Binah. And then the last Hey is Shechina, the lower Hey, the lower mother. The upper Hey is Binah. The lower mother, the lower Hey, is Shechina. So all of this goes back to now saying that Yud is Chochmah. So the world that is coming was created with Yud or through Yud, means that Binah was created from Chochmah. That Chochmah was the one that engendered Binah as a self-engendering process to be able to make it possible for there to be that dyadic, that dual concept of male and female, to be able to be the generating principle for life. So the world that is that is coming was created with Yud. This wisdom is concealed there. So what happens is that Chochmah enters into Binah, the same way that the other Sfirot in the end will enter into Shechina. Chochmah enters into Binah. Binah is the cocoon. Binah is the womb. And wisdom takes up dwelling. She is the house. And they are one. Okay, so they become united. When all is prepared in the mystery of the world that is coming, as we have seen, as we have said, joy radiates, all in silence, never heard outside. So this union between Chochmah and Binah is a union that we can't talk about, that we have all of the words that I've been saying no purpose on. And as it stands by itself, it is mute. It's completely silent. Right? It's not in and of itself yet something that goes beyond itself. It's still that moment of loving embrace by 2 partners, without the following stages of whatever it is that happens by their becoming united, or whatever their love ends up engendering. It's the moment together that is the moment of bliss that has no words. That's the union between Chochmah and Binah. Okay, So it's all silent. It's all silent. Okay. So remember, our verse is not about silence, right? But this is the preliminary stage for the silence to be broken. Okay, any questions, any comments? Okay, Beryl.
Seeking to expand further, there issued from this site fire, water, and air. As has been said, becoming a single voice issuing outside, heard. As has been said, from that point on, it is outside, for inside it is silent, never heard. While now that the mystery is heard, it is called outside. From here, one must prepare himself through action and inquire.
Okay, so the verse is wisdom's cry aloud outside. Chochmot nachutz tarona. So what is the nature of this outsideness? The outsideness is the emergence from that private, intimate, unknowable union between Chokhmah and Binah, the issuing forth of the ramifications, the repercussions of that union. Right? So the privacy is broken. The eternal, unknowable union, which is forever and is never broken. Nevertheless, it engenders steps that build upon themselves, build upon each other, and create multiplicity, create the possibilities of making some noise. And that's what the outside is. The first three sfirot are inside. Then there's a jump. Right? From Binah, there issues forth the other sfirot. They come out of Binah. They're outside of that closed union. So even though they're all encompassed within the divine world, the divine bubble, whatever, nevertheless, relative to each other, they are exterior to that upper triad, and the first point of that upper triad is already so unspeakable and so untouchable that there's actually nothing for us to say. But there is this union of Chokhmah and Binah, which we acknowledge, but which stands apart, and our touching it is only by virtue of the fact that we have stuff that came out of it. And that stuff that came out of it is the fire and the water, the fire and the air. The water is chesed. The fire is din, gvura, pachad. And the air is tiferet. The water, the flowing love, the chesed of Abraham. We had this already. Isaac is the fire, right? He's put on the fire of the altar. And then the air is the harmonization together. So we had back a while other images where the Zohar again and again tries to align the creative unfolding, the emanation of God's being into reality with the model of expression, right, of talking. And the way that the Zohar explains it in simple terms is, first you think of something, or first there's an impulse to say something, but the impulse is silent, the impulse is interior, the impulse is private, and if you stifle that impulse, no one will ever know that you had that impulse. So then you start formulating what you want to say. And after you formulate what you want to say, you open your mouth and sound starts coming out. And the sound starts getting divided into audible, recognizable differentiations, which then translate into understandable words and expressions. That's speech. So that process we've had, as I said, we tracked it earlier. And this is the way that the Zohar understands the emanative process of creation itself. Creation is God expressing God's self. When God says, let there be light, there is. Because that's the whole idea, that's the expression, right? The dibur, the talking, is the creation. Baruch Sha'amar v'haya ha'olam. That's all, right? So but to get to the amirah, to get to the dibur, there is all of this backstory. There's all of this process of God coming up with a thought of creation and thinking about how to create, and then mulling it over, and then bringing out, well, what kind of aspects will be part of creation? Until God finally says a word, there's this whole, to use a subconscious set of experiences before they become explicit and are brought up into consciousness and expressed. So that's what's happening over here, says the Zohar. This idea of chokhmot bachutz tarona is about the interior life of God, the interior mulling over, the interior life of desire, of God creating something that makes it possible for there to be a loving union. And that has to then sort of gestate, and then it has to start slowly taking form. So the silence is broken by coming outside, right? And now the mystery is heard. It's called outside. Chutz, chokhmot bachutz tarona, right? That's when they raise their voice. And the word tarona is the same kind of word as lechu niranena l'Hashem, right? Let's sing out our voices, right? There's a certain exuberance, vitality, literally vitality, life, the life force, everything is taking on life. On Slichot night, we say lishmoa el harina v'elat tefillah, that we want God to hear both the singing, the joy, the exuberance, and the pleading and the prayer. So here, that's what happens. The bursting forth is the baby giving its first geschrei when it comes out into the world. And nothing yet is expressed in a conscious way. Nothing is enunciated clearly, but just the voice comes out, right? So that's the idea. From here, one must prepare himself through action and inquire. Okay, so let's look at note 212, please.
From here, one must prepare himself through action and inquire. Human righteous action stimulates and unifies the sifrot below Binah. Here, spiritual quest is appropriate and faithful, whereas Here, spiritual quest is appropriate and fruitful, whereas Binah herself is a concealed realm where questions remain unanswered. She is known as who.
So in other places, and again, we've touched on this many times, in other places, the Zohar makes a distinction between the parts of God that can be productively engaged in, contemplated, talked about, studied, worked on, and the parts of God that just have to be acknowledged as there, as a mystery. So the distinctions in the Hebrew are, for instance, between me and ma, right? That ma is whatness. That's Shechina. Me is the question who. And that question applies to Bina. Who is this God that I have no understanding of whatsoever, and nevertheless I feel that God is there? What does it mean to have a God that you're conscious of, but that you have nothing whatsoever to say in comprehension of? Right? That's the me. In another place, early on, first couple of pages of the Zohar says the word for the Almighty is Elokim. Right? How do you spell Elokim? Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. Aleph, Lamed, Hey is Eila. And the Yud, Mem is ocean, or reversed, it's me. Eila is this, these. I can point at them. Me is an unanswerable question. Who is God? So when we have it, for instance, at the crossing of the Red Sea, we say, Zeh Keli v'yanvehu. Here it is. God is right here. This is my God, right? Herman Wouk's book takes its title from that statement. And this is the idea that to be able to actually feel a concrete identification of who God is, but to understand that there's whatever concreteness or whatever definitive relationship with God you can have at any time, and that's a little bit of the idea of naming God. Right? When we go into traditional slichot, many of the traditional slichot go through so many different names of God, or even just on a very little theme that we riff on. Craig, in the good old days, would lead us in Chachris, right? And we would have a piyut, Lakel Orech Din, right? And then we, what does it go? Do you remember it by heart? Yeah, but you're muted. You're still in the secret inner depths of your own.
Sorry about that. If I had my mock sword down here, I could sing. But da 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 ba din da 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 yom din.
We code it through the alphabet, right? And we go lebochin lebavos beyom din, legolea mukos badin, ledover meisharim badin. We keep using different names for God through the alphabet, and we're naming God. We're playing. I don't want to use the word playing so much, but we're mixing it up with this kind of aspect of God, because we can talk about God and talk about God and talk about God, but then there still has to be a place where we have to say, for all of our talking about God, we need to remember that we haven't exhausted, we haven't defined God, we haven't put God in God's place, we haven't been able to analyze God down to the nth degree. That's the me, right? Who is this God that I keep on talking about? That part of God is unreachable. So the implication of this note is, so forget about it. Don't try to mess with things that you can't understand, right? And that's a very strong cautionary tale in all of the history of Kabbalah, right? The people that messed with too much of stuff that they weren't really capable of dealing with, and they get in trouble, and they get led astray, and they get they go into realms that are the opposite of godly realms. But so fruitfully, just deal with what you can deal with, right? Deal with what you can actually understand. But B'mufla mimcha al tidrosh. That which is too wondrous for you, don't go in seeking. Right? So there's a lot of truth to that. But as the Zohar is presenting it here, the fruitful questioning comes out of the infinite question. All of the possibilities of asking questions where you can actually hope to make some progress, to get an answer, that is all founded on a source of a question that has no answer. And nevertheless, you don't stop asking that question. Right? To stop asking that question is to erase that part of God's reality from your mind, and then you're missing the whole point. So asking a question is about, I said recently to somebody, making time come alive. The first source of a flow of time is the world that is coming. The world that is coming, Olam Haba. That's when the static union of God, the oneness of God, is finally actually cracked open. And the flow begins. And we're going to start getting into the flow a little bit more. We had it already. Right? That's the gift of Binah opening up herself, despite the fact that we have no idea how. But her me, who is she? How mysterious, how impossible to talk about. That is the grounding for talking about everything else. That is the opening up of the possibility to start moving and to start building, right? Binah means wisdom, but it's related, as the rabbis make statements all over the place, right, to building, right? That with it's through that binah that everything else gets created and built. All right. Anybody else want to say something here? Okay. So just let me conclude this with the Elokim and Eila and me. So we have a verse in Psalms, Su'u maro meinechem u're'u mi bara Eila. Look up into the heavens with your eyes and see who created these. So the simple idea is you should get inspiration from looking up into the skies, just like Abraham got inspiration and when God took him outside and said, look, your children are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. But the way the Zohar reads it in that early beginning section, mi bara Eila. Mi created Eila. Mi is Binah united with Chokhmah. Mi created all these others, all the other steps of the divine unfolding. Okay. So, with everybody's permission, we go now into the next paragraph. Now we finally get to the word Rehovot.
Excuse me. Barehovot, in the broad places. Who is Rehovot? That expanse encompassing all sparkling stars, a bubbling spring whose waters never cease. As is said, a river issues from Eden to water the garden. That is Rehovot, expanses. There she raises her voice, upper and lower, and all is one.
So this is the idea of Rehovot. This is the idea of breaking out of the narrowness of the self-enclosed love nest of God, with Chokhmah and Binah together, locked in eternal embrace. And now what we have is the spring starts flowing. A river starts going out from Eden. Eden is Binah, to flow and to water the garden. The garden will be Shekhinah. We've had this before. The flowing is that divine energy, which is a flowing of water, and a flowing of Nahar also means light, Nahora. Right? We had it a couple of weeks ago in the Haftorah as well. So that in Yeshaya, the word is glowing, shining, beaming, as a flowing river-like stream of light. So a river issues from Eden to water the garden. That's Rehovot. That's the idea. That's this expansiveness. And that's the giving forward more and more and more and more and more, right? This constant flow. And that's what unites the upper realm with the lower realm. And this is what raising the voice means. Raising the voice means to finally make it possible for sound, right, to be unmuted, for sound to start gushing, be able to start hearing the burbling and the gurgling and the crashing of the waves. What do we say in the Psalms that we say, every Shabbat? We say, Mikolot Maim Rabim Adirim Mishbrayam Hadir Bamarom Hashem. Right? There are all of these voices, all of these sounds, all of these breaking waves of water gushing forward, and then God is even above that. So that's what we have here. The part of God that's above that, and then it's releasing of its own self to create that gushing, that torrent of water. That's always coming. That's always constantly going and going and going, right? And all in one flow, right? All is one, right? All is one. With all of these differentiations that we're talking about, the concealment, and then the breaking out into revelation. Nevertheless, it's all one, right? It's all together. Okay. Yeah. All right. Therefore,
Solomon said, prepare your work outside. Make it ready for yourself in the field. Prepare outside. As has been explained, for it is written, cries aloud outside, since from here work is to be prepared, and word is susceptible to questioning, as is written, for ask now of primal days, from one end of heaven to the other. Make it ready for yourself in the field, a field blessed by Yud-He Vav-He.
Okay, let's stop for a second here. I want to check just the verse for a second. So this is Mishlei 24:27. Right. Hachein bachutz melachtecha v'yateda basadeh lach achar uvanita beitecha. Right. So that's the end of it. The end of the verse. Prepare your work outside, bachutz. Make it ready for yourself in the field, and then you will build your house. Right? You will build your house. And that's, of course, coming it back into Uvanita Beitecha. The circle is closed. This is Binah being manifested in the external process of taking all of that mystery and making it tangible, making it literally concrete. So then it says, Sha'alna Liamim Rishonim, right? From one end of the heaven to the other. How do we understand that verse? What's that verse being brought into here? Prepare outside, as has been explained, for it is written, cries aloud outside. That's what we were just discussing. Since from here work is to be prepared, and word is susceptible to questioning, as it is written. What does that mean? So this goes back to the idea of what you're supposed to be inquiring about at the top of the page, right? From here, one must prepare himself through action and inquire. Right? So this is where we get into what we have in the Torah, Haniglot Lashem Hanistarot Lashem Elokeinu v'Haniglot lanu ulvanenu. Right? The hidden is to God, and what is manifest, what is apparent, what is revealed, that's for us. So the Zohar is saying there's so much we can do work in. There is the field that of our action is so broad. It's rechovot, right? It's expanses. There are expanses and expanses of territory for us to work in and build in, with our complete understanding that actually there's a more vast area that we can't even touch. Nevertheless, enjoy the fact that you can do all of this work in this world. This world is open for you to build this in. This world is open for you to ask every question. This world is open for you to inquire. Sha'alna yamim rishonim. Ask the questions. Find out from those aspects of the world that you can get a handle on, right? This is, the encouragement to make this world as fruitful, as beautiful, as constructive, as righteous, as holy as it can possibly be. There's so much to do. There's so much to do, and yet actually all we're doing is we're on the outside. We're all working. We're field workers, right? We're not actually in the inner sanctum. We're working outside. But look at how much work there is to do. Right? Make it ready for yourself in the field. The field is blessed by God. Right? And of course, the field is the divine presence in this world, Shekhinah. Shekhinah's complete spreading out, rechovot, right? Wide open expanses into this world of constantly multiplying divine expression. Yeah, Len.
Yeah, is the Rehovot also associated with the place that God talks to us? We have the phrase from Hallel, va'anani b'merchavya.
Right, not va'anani b'merchavya. Yeah, I quoted that verse actually last week when we talked about Rehovot. Yes, absolutely. So that would be fitting right in perfectly with this, right? Where can a response come from? It can only come, the speech, the voice coming out into focus is part of the merchav. It's part of the becoming broad and expansive. Yeah. When we feel that God isn't answering us, it's pretty constricting and scary and debilitating. Any answer that we get, it doesn't have to be a booming voice from heaven, but any answer that we feel that we get, that's an expression. That's the truth that we're talking about. Right? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Beryl, you ready?
One knows the mystery of wisdom and prepares himself within what is written. Afterward, build your house, the soul within one's body to be cultivated so that one becomes consummate.
So here they say, the kind of a reversal of the image. Right? After we build your house, what do they identify as the house? They identify the house as the soul. Right? Within one's body, the body should be the house. Right? The note says the soul housed in the body. Right? So there's actually here a little cheating going on here. If the house is the body, then what is this about the soul? Build your house, the to be cultivated so that one becomes consummate. What is that about? Right? What is that about? Is it saying that the soul is the house? No, the body is the house. So what's the deal with the house? Building the house.
Well, it's pure, purifying yourself, make yourself worthy of the soul. Don't make it a place of defilement. Make it a worthy place.
Right. So make it a worthy place. I think that's good. The purifying gets me scared, but because there's too much of a sense of physical negation that people associate with the idea of purification. What this is saying is to be consummate, to be a full human being, is to somehow be able to get the same kind of union that Chokhmah has with Binah. We should work on having between our soul and our body. Right? We're not relinquishing our body. Our body was given to us and our soul was put into it. The same way that Chokhmah ends up entering the house of Binah in order to be there to create life, in order to be there to be full of, surrounded by love, in order to be able to generate expanses. So we actually can't do it in this world without our body. So the body needs to be, so the word purified, like I said, yes, that's true. And the Zohar has plenty to say about purification all over the place. But when we think about purification, here the Zohar is talking more about integration, about unifying the soul with the body, so that the body becomes a sanctuary for the soul. Right? The body becomes that house that the soul can live in. Right? Instead of a jail that the soul feels it's being confined within. Right? Here we are, and in a period of struggle and confinement and quarantine. Is the house that we're confined to? Is it a prison for us, or is it a sanctuary? Is it a safe place for us that we can seek refuge in? So the idea of being in harmony with one's house, in harmony with one's body, is going to make us more consummate, more pure, more complete. So the Zohar doesn't exactly say what that means. Of course, in the end, it has to do with doing the mitzvot the right way. We're going to have at Yom Kippur, right, at the night of Kol Nidre. So in our shul, we've adopted the custom of reading out loud the Chai Adam's prayer, Tfilah Zakah. Tfilah Zakah. What does it say? It says, God, you gave me hands. You gave me hands to do good things, but instead I go running around and I mess things up. You gave me a tongue. You gave me a tongue to be able to sing to you, to be able to say words of Torah. Instead, I say Lashon Hara. You gave me legs. You gave me generative organs. You gave me erotic zones. What did you give me all this body stuff for? You gave it to me to be able to be used. It's not something for me to be able to turn my back on. You gave me a back. So what So do I misuse it, or do I actually really use it in a way that is positive and literally, from the Zohar's point of view, constructive. Does it construct the house for the soul that it was given to us? The building materials are given to us, and then the construction site is up to us. Yeah, Larry.
No, I was just wondering that it occurred to me that there's a word play, lehavin, lehavnot, that building and bina and understanding are connected.
Right. That's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
The word bina is connected to that, and it's lahavin is to understand, and livnot
Livnot.
is to build. In the traditional davening, we have it both Friday night and we have it also Shabbos morning. We say, Omar Rabbi Elazar, Omar Rabbi Chanina, Tamidei Chachamim Marbim Shalom Ba'olam. Right, that sages are supposed to be increasing peace in the world. Right. So it says, Shneimar v'chol banayich limudei Hashem, Rav Shalom banayich. Al tikra banayich, abanayich ela bonayich. Right. So it says your children will have much peace because they're all part of engaged in learning about you. So the Midrash says, don't read it as your children, banayich. Read it as banayich. So what is banayich? So some people translate it as the people that build, right? The constructors, the people that are building Torah. And other people read it as banayich, the people who try to understand, because all of those words are part of the same idea. They're all encompassed in the same circles of meaning.
And I also the other thing I was thinking of is the comment, the thought that you can't question something that's totally beyond you. So that if it was like in the upper three and it was recondite, it's not possible to question. But this is talking about, I'm going back to the sentence that where it said, the word is susceptible to questioning. So it's something that you could actually question. So I'm thinking about science, like if you get into sort of try to understand the world, actually understand the world, as opposed to just, I don't understand the world, then you're in the realm where God is, seems apparent or possible to reach. Maybe.
Right. And the word that we have here is fruitful. It's a fruitful inquiry. It's a fruitful path of inquiry, right? That it will disclose more and more understanding to you if you keep asking, right? Science is this ongoing, amazing process of keeping on uncovering new things and then asking questions based on that, and then uncovering more things. So that's the process where the questions come up with answers. They bring something out into the open. What I was trying to say before is that nevertheless, it's not quite so that you can't ask. It's true you can't ask, but as soon as you say me, you're asking. As soon as you say who, that eternal unanswered question that is God beyond the realm of questioning is still that. And that's what I was trying to say. So the question is, what's your attitude in your questioning? This, what are you looking for in your questioning? And again, that's part of the idea of timing, of time. Questions in good faith are full of hope. Questions are quests. They are a searching with the implicit conviction that there's an answer. I can find it. I will find it. Someone will give it to me. That's what productive questioning is about. There can be destructive questioning. Right? This is what happens with the Russia, right? With the Russia at the Pesach Seder. The Russia also asks the question. It's the perennial discussion of what's the difference between the wise son and the wicked son. They're asking the same question. And he says, "Ma avodah hazot lachem?" What is this service, or what is this tircha? What is this work that you're doing? What is it? What is it to you? That question could be a very generative question. Let's explore. What does this really mean to you? What is this all about? Why are you committing yourself to do this? That's a deep digging kind of question, but that's because you're hoping for something. You're hoping to uncover something. You're hoping to dig a well. Back to Yitzchak, right? You want to dig the well to find some water. But if it's a rhetorical question that's dismissive, if it's a question that's used to pull down all of that and saying, what's this for you? Then that's not a question that asks for an answer. It's betrayal of what questioning is about. It's a slap in the face. That's why it's a Russia. Right? The Russia is saying this night of questioning is meaningless. What good is all this questioning? Now, people can say that out of desperation, and people can say that out of despair and hopelessness. Sometimes people have, they reach hopelessness from suffering, but it also can be out of contempt and out of a desire to destroy, not to build. That's what the Seder is talking about. That questions can be either avenues of hope that take you forward, that take you into expanses, or it can be a way of pulling everything down. What the Zohar is bringing up with this higher supernal area of God is that there's this other part of that. There's a pre-question that is meant to be the source of creative questioning, but it's a pre realm, a pre-constructive questioning realm, which is about the fact that there's a humility that we have to accept, that in the end we're not going to get it all. We're not going to get it. And to leave room for that, right? Okay. Let's finish the last paragraph here for this section.
So when Isaac dug and built a well in peace, he called that peace Rehovot, expanses, all fittingly. Happy are the righteous whose actions verge toward the blessed Holy One, sustaining the world, as is written, for the upright
Yishkenu Aretz.
will abide on earth. Yishkenu
Kinu Aretz. They changed the reading from Yishkenu to Yashkinu.
Yashkinu Aretz will cause earth to abide as has been established.
Right. So earth is the divine presence. The righteous, when they do all of their work, make it possible for the divine presence to abide in this arena that we call our world. Right? So that's what the righteousness does. The righteousness builds the houses. Righteousness builds, but of course, houses that people can afford to live in. That's the constructive work. Rechovot here is brought into the realm of peacefulness. Right? If you look at 221.
He called that peace Rehovot, expanses, whereas according to Rabbi Hia, Isaac gave the name Rehovot to the well, Shekhinah. Rabbi Shimon teaches that this name was given to peace, symbolizing Yesod, the spring. ever-flowing and expanding. Yesod, the divine phallus, brings peace by uniting Tiferet and Shekhinah.
And then it refers to the phallus as the peacemaker of the home. Okay, an interesting image that we're not going to deal with right now. But just for the last couple of minutes, what we have here again is a kind of a circling back. So the word shalom is an appellation for Yesod, because it brings all of the other divine sources of energy together and then pours them into Shekhinah. So in that sense, shalom is dynamic, right? It's that pouring forth, it's that expansive giving that keeps on continuing. But of course, peace is also quiescent, right? Peace is also about the fact that, like with Isaac, nobody's bothering me anymore, right? Nothing is harassing me. It's all, quiet. It's all we say Shabbat Shalom, right? Let the Shabbat be a Shabbat of peace and quiet. So that peace and quiet is not the same thing as the ongoing movement of the water. What it also comes back to is that moment that we had with Chokhmah and Bina, that moment of peace, when they are united and they're holding on to each other before and after the dynamic of unification, the dynamic of love, the dynamic of seeking, the dynamic of then creating, and of engendering and breaking out and breaking forth. So there's two sides to this, right? And each of them are still echoing that earlier ground from which the rest of reality, springs and streams, right? That moment that exists all the way up there that we can't even talk about, that we're talking about tonight, right? When Chokhmah unites with Bina, or when Yesod unites with Shekhinah, isn't there a little bit of questioning there? Isn't there, when the two partners seek each other out, isn't there a questioning there at that moment? Isn't that essential to to the erotic charge of a real a real unification? If there's no questioning, then it's a kind of a dead, pro forma kind of experience. So the questioning is there at the very root. The questioning, and the creating of the peace that comes out of it is all part of that that binding together. So there are so many levels here of binding together that the Zohar wants us to engage in, whether it's contemplatively or actively, right? In our deeds and in our life. So Rosh Hashanah starts tomorrow night. I want to wish everybody a better year than this year, and for the whole world. And let it be a year that we can dig wells and find peace. Do all that hard work, and then strike water. Strike water.
Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you.